With everything unclamped, I can give it a quick sand to remove any glue squeeze. Then start gluing up the remaining inner skins. And while the glue is setting, I can start sanding back the top edge of the shelf, not forgetting to do both sides, of course. You know your joins are pretty good when you don't start ripping the sanding pads to shreds when you come over to an edge like this, to a corner. I've dropped the carcass flat on its front so I can fit the base, sliding the pre-glued section into place, then carefully, because it's very heavy, tipping the carcass onto it. Okay, gotta confess, that was a lot easier than I was expecting it to be. I guess we can never have enough weight. And I'll clamp up that front edge just for good measure. I still can't quite believe how easily that went together. It's all in the planning, maybe. With the carcass all set, we can fit the end panels, gluing and clamping in the usual way, before setting it aside for the glue to dry. So yeah, me using a table saw, it doesn't happen very often, but I need to rip 50mm strips just to fit as a capping piece over all the edges. So I need a dozen or so of those, and repetitive narrow rips is just about the only thing that I do use a table saw for still. So I'm just going to bang those out now. I need half a dozen or so. With the ends unclamped, the edges get a final sanding. Then we can start fitting the capping pieces, first trimming to the exact size, then gluing and taping in place, and finally clamping as needed. And continuing on all around the carcass. Okay, so after a reasonable interlude to allow the glue to set, it just occurs to me, look, it's been wrapped in bandages, isn't it? We've got the glue's gotten set now, so the next sort of hour or so is going to be spent just sanding. Just going to sand all this back nice and square and flush, and then just putting some 2-pack filler all around the edges. So yeah, sanding, filling, sanding. Doesn't get better than this. With the tape removed, we can fire up the sander to sand back the edges, taking care to avoid rounding anything over. One of the things you've got to watch out for when you're sanding edges back like this is that you get a slight sort of, because you can't get the sander all the way into the corner here, you get a slight sort of thickening, a little bit of a sort of a waistline appearing. And the way around that is just to use a piece of sandpaper on a board, and you can get that right in there. On both edges. Top isn't there actually. You get much straighter and smoother now. With the sanding complete, everything gets a thorough vacuuming, then we can start applying our 2-pack resin filler to all the edges. Always slightly surprised, in a good way, at how little filler it actually needs, considering these are just taped on with PVA. You know, they pull up really pretty tight. There's just a couple of really hairline little cracks in there. Mix some more stuff. It's pretty warm in here, so This stuff's going off really fast. And with the filler set, I can switch to my smaller orbital sander to carefully clean up all around. Okay, so the last thing I need to do, everything's all sanded back lovely and smooth, it's all looking great, apart from packing it up and making it ready to ship out in the morning. The last thing I need to do, this is going to have a Perspex plexiglass cover over the whole thing, and it's 10mm thick, so I've got to put a couple of little battens on either side to locate that cover on so it doesn't slop around. So it needs to be reasonably accurate. I'm using 10mm dominoes actually as a packer, which is pretty good. They're slightly under 10mm, and I'm giving them about 0.5 mil more all around just to give it a little bit of wiggle room, because obviously this is going to have layers of paint on and all the rest of it, although obviously they'll make the cover to fit. This is the last thing I'm going to do. We'll get that done now, and then clear up and get out of here, I think. Glue, that's what we need. These little battens are simply glued in place and held fast with tape while the glue sets, checking as we go that they're still in position. So what does a DJ table look like? Well, it kind of looks like that. Kind of looks like 150 kilos of unashamedly raw MDF. It'll look lovely when it's finished, I'm sure. Again, one of those jobs where I never get to see the finished article. I may get a picture of it or something. But I think, as I said at the top of the video, there's not a whole lot to say about it. It's pretty simple. The construction was fairly straightforward. Just a question of slotting it all together in the right order and finishing it up nicely and trying to keep the edges nice and sharp. Now, obviously, I've got to wrap this up for delivery. Feel quite sorry for the poor van driver, actually. I think he's got a nice easy job getting out to Croydon in the morning. Instead he's going to be lugging that thing around. Anyway, I hope you found it interesting, hope you found it useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up, share it out amongst your friends, and please do consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Don't forget you can support me directly through Patreon at patreon.com/10minute workshop, and I just want to take a minute to thank all those subscribers who do support me through that process. Thanks so much, it does mean a lot and it really does help. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.